Aaron, can you tell me where you're from so that way I can start some casual conversation? Not awkward
Uh,
at all, right? Not awkward.
Jose, you're so awkward.
do you mean like generally where I'm from, or like whereabouts in the UK?
I mean, I'm American, so I won't know if you name a specific place.
Oh God, I'm from Hastings, which is not the best place in the UK, to be honest.
I'll raise you Hastings and give you Dover.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Known for traffic jams and racism, I believe, is what we're known for most of the time.
Wow.
Cue music. Hi, and welcome to the We Need a Voice podcast. I'm your host, Neil, and I'm joined all the way from sunny Florida by Mr. Jose Lopez. How's it going, Jose?
Greetings, folks.
And making his debut with us here today, all the way, well, also from the UK, film critic and filmmaker, Mr. Aaron Gillingham. How's it going, Aaron?
Not so sunny southeast of England. Yeah, I'm all good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
So my name is Aaron, obviously, and I mostly do YouTube videos covering recent and older films. Aaron at the movies. Also, recently have started doing written reviews in the past year for people like websites like Filmhounds, Cinematique, and there is another one, Movie Marker. That's the other website. And I'm also an aspiring filmmaker as well, where I've released a feature-length documentary in January this year, and it's the first ever feature-length anything I've made, and it was quite an audacious task, but I'm happy with how it turned out.
In our last episode, we did a bit of a summer roundup recently on some of the TV we've missed, and now it's a cinema roundup in today's episode. We're going to be giving you non-spoiler reviews of Kneecap, Borderlands, Trap, Twisters, The Young Woman and the Sea. Aaron will be giving us some of his top picks from this year's recent Fright Fest festival. And in our spoiler section at the end of the pod, we're going to be delving into Fede Alvarez's Alien Romulus. First up, a mostly Irish Gaelic film called Kneecap, which charts the rise of a Belfast-based hip-hop trio called, well, Kneecap. And amazingly, actually stars the band's members playing themselves, which usually never works out, except here, all three band members are actually really superb playing a version of themselves and telling their story. Now, Aaron, we have an issue with really bad Irish pronunciations on this podcast. When we did the Banshees of Inisherin, we got complaints. And luckily, one of our listeners from Ireland literally sent us a voice note on how to pronounce Barry Cohen. Because we always thought it was Barry Keoghan, and apparently it's Barry Cohen. So if Google Translate was right, I might have this right. So as always, I'm going to pre-apologise to any of our Irish listeners for my terrible pronunciations. But as the story starts, it starts with best mates Liam and Nisha growing up learning Gaelic from his father, Arlo, played by Michael Fassbender, who then conveniently disappears. After Liam gets arrested at a party and refuses to speak English to the police, they call in JJ, a music teacher at an Irish language school, to translate. JJ helps him get off and hides a notebook of Liam that has lyrics in it. When he returns it, clearly a frustrated musician himself, Liam, he approaches the boys about starting a group. That's as far as I really want to get into the plot, other than say, go and see this film. I am not a hip-hop fan by any stretch of the imagination, but the film skillfully walks the line between music, comedy and drama, deftly serving all three aspects. Liam and Nisha for first-time actors are superb, and I was really reminded of Trainspotting early on, with the copious amounts of drug-taking, sex, running down the street being chased by people, and their outlook, especially on the English. Going in, I saw this a few weeks ago at a secret screening, and only 6 people left, which for a secret screening at Dover is really good. 3 left straight at the start when they saw the name of the film, probably gutted because they were expecting Alien, and 3 people left about 10 minutes in because clearly they can't read subtitles, which was a massive shame because this is, for me, one of the best British films of the year. I mean, each year, in the last couple of years, we've had some amazing British films come out. I mean, go back last year, I thought Scrapper was brilliant, really underseen film. There was a year before, obviously,
After Sun.
We had After Sun a few years ago. But this film, it just has a vibrant anarchy to it. How many films do you see where they're trying to capture youth on screen or get a youth vibe? And it's made by, old men who just don't know what they're doing. This captures that. It doesn't try and fake it, and what you see is really real on screen. I didn't even know this was based on a real band until the end credits, which showed some of the real events the film was based on. I think Nisha and Liam, they're basically just playing themselves on screen. But I was really impressed by JJ, and I'm going to get this wrong, O'Doherty, I think it is, as a music teacher, because he's got a lot more heavy lifting to do with his performance as a stifled teacher who risks his job and his relationship to make a go of the band. And he's superb for me, man. Just the acting he has to do for a first-timer. He really portrays that malaise of being stuck doing something you really don't want to do in your middle age or like late 30s, I guess he's probably is in it. I couldn't find the film's budget online, but it's taken almost $1 million at the box office already. And it's been submitted as Ireland's official entry for the Oscars for Best International Feature. So go and see it before it becomes an Irish Oscar winner.
That's impressive about the box office. I didn't realise that, because I heard brief rumblings of this film when it played. It was either Sundance or South by Southwest, and I heard some very faint rumblings about it. And I thought Kneecap was just the name of the film. I didn't realise there was similar to you. I didn't realise there was a band attached to it. But when I heard about the film being really good, and I then saw that I think they released an album like a month or two ago, I gave the album a listen, was intrigued, and now I do want to watch this film. It's just unfortunately my local cinema does not play smaller films. It usually just plays the big ones, and then that's kind of it. So I will have to try and track this film down to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I was lucky. I had this on a secret screening. So that's the only reason I saw it. And that's what I love about the secret screenings, because you see films you would normally never see. I saw Hatching a few years ago, which was a Finnish body horror film that we described at the time as if David Cronenberg had made E.T. And that is the most walkouts I think I've ever seen at a secret screening at Cineworld. That and Talk to Me, because I think Talk to Me was the last horror they had. They kind of cleverly rebranded it to Secret Screamings now. So if it's going to be a horror film, you know it's going to be a horror film. You won't even know what it is. But so like recently, I just saw Cuckoo the other week as well on that, which was a secret one. Crazy Dan Stevens playing a weird German doctor in the Bavarian mountains.
Sign me up.
Yeah, do you know what though? It's almost, because it's called Cuckoo, and you know there's going to be some kind of connection to a cuckoo. It really reminded me of Hatching. So it was funny that a film I saw probably 2 years ago now that was also a secret screening, that they were so tonally similar in what they were doing. But obviously, Dan Stevens in anything at the minute, he's just superb.
Oh, yeah.
But sadly, from the sublime to the frankly shite, because my already low expectations for this film were even more sadly met than I imagined. And that film is Eli Roths' Borderlands. Look, we all saw the trailer for months and months and months, and it looked fine. It had jokes. Piss Gulch Gully got a laugh every time. Had a good cast, and Roth seemed like he was trying to make his version of Guardians of the Galaxy. You had Cate Blanchett, you had Jamie Lee Curtis, comedy duo Jack Black and Kevin Hart, and rising star Ariana Greenblatt. I was like, okay, at best, this is going to be a third-rate Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff, you know? As it's Roth directing, and I quite actually enjoyed his last film before this, Thanksgiving. I was expecting this was going to be like a full-on, gory, 18-rated Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff. So imagine my surprise and horror at the lack of horror when this film certificate popped up as a 12. I mean, this is based on a video game where you just go around shooting stuff and loads of cannibals.
So I don't actually think I've seen any of Roth's previous films, but I know the reputation that they have with gore.
Yeah.
However, I love the series as a game. I love the game series. So when I found out that game series is notoriously an 18 for gore, violence, and just incredibly crass and crude humor. And when I saw that the film was a 12, I literally was looking at my phone while having lunch at work, and I was like, oh my God, the one thing that they needed to get right, and they've already kind of screwed it.
I mean, that was the one way I thought they was going to differentiate themselves from Guardians of the Galaxy. They was going to be R-rated or like, 15 or 18. Just push the gore. Why would you hire Roth for this? I mean, he did make a kids' film a few years back. He did that one with Jack Black called The House with the Clocks in the Walls.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. I mean, Cate Blanchett was in that, so that's where it started. Everything about this film was just paint by numbers. So sadly, you have to really go some to get a bad performance out of Cate Blanchett. And she's trying as much as she can to sell it. But the fault of this film falls down on the script and the poor direction. she's not enough to save this. I almost feel in a way having big, well-known actors in this was to its detriment, because I feel like why are Blanchett and Curtis doing this? Did they just fancy? After their Oscar-winning roles recently, they just fancy. Oh, I want to stand in front of a green screen and jump around and have fun for a bit. I guess do something a little bit lighter. And I mean, you can't get much lighter than this because I don't even think there's one fuck in it, and you can have one fuck in a 12.
Yeah,
there is definitely not in this. When I walked in, the cinema staff literally said to me, "You're brave." And there were 6 of us in there on opening day of release at about 6 o'clock screening.
yeah.
And the staff, I know, there was like, yeah, literally we had half the audience walked out at the screening before yours.
Oh, wow.
And look, it's not the worst film of the year for me. It's competently made. It just, when you've got the IP it's based on and you've completely misjudged the IP and you've got a cast that good at your disposal, Roth really should have done better with his script and definitely his direction. I mean, like I was saying, I liked his last film. Thanksgiving was hilariously funny and gory. That tone was right. So I don't know if people saw that and went, this is the guy we get to do Borderlands. Oh, but by the way, you're making this. I mean, I don't know who this was for. It's not funny enough or kiddie enough to, well, it's just not good enough to get the Guardians of the Galaxy fans in. Oh, and the irony is that 70s soft rock song in the trailer that my dad recognised, and I forgot who it is now. That's not even in the film.
Oh, wow.
It was just a trailer song. Yeah. I can't think of one needle drop that stands out from the whole film.
I think what also grates me, and again, this is coming from someone who's not seen the film, because I was excited for the film when I heard about it, and then I started seeing all the reviews and the rating, and then my anticipation waned, and I didn't. But I think I'm now at a point where I'm like, I will probably watch it at some point in the future.
On streaming.
Yeah, or if it like shows up on TV or something, I'll probably watch it, at some point. But it's one of those ones where like usually I don't. Not just the director, but like even the casting, like you've said, usually casting doesn't bother me that much. Like I know people got annoyed with Scarlett Johansson in Ghost in the Shell. That didn't bother me as much. As long as the actor is good in the role, that's fine. Exactly. But here, knowing what some of these characters are like in the game, for example, Tannis, who I think in the film is played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Like as soon as I heard that she was playing her, and then I remembered what she's like in the game, I'm like, she sounds and looks and behaves nothing like how she is in the. Again, she might.
She's just Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, and in the games, she's like this pompous British sounding, kind of very not germophobic, but like she's very like don't touch my stuff. Very upper.
Yeah, none of that comes through in the film at all, man. You've just done more character development for her character than was in the film.
God, yeah, I'm staying away.
That's how good bad it is. I mean. The opening scene is literally an escape/kidnap scene where all the main characters are kind of, bar Kate Blanchett, are kind of thrown together. And I'm just remembering back to Guardians, and I was like, there's so little time taken to explain how everyone's connected. It's just, and here's the characters. That's the guy who's a bit like Drax. This is, Kevin Hart and Jack Black. I think they think they're in Jumanji 3. Because they're just doing the same kind of performance. I know Claptrap's supposed to be annoying, but he's so fucking annoying in this.
Want to like shoot Claptrap in the face, but then there's other points where like he's a bit endearing, he's all on his own, and you can see he's trying to be there for you as a character, but he's just doing it in completely the wrong way. And again, I was happy with the casting of Jack Black, but if he's just annoying 99% of the time, then that's kind of defeating the point of it, really.
Yeah, it's just that you don't care. You just don't care as you're watching it. You're bored by it. It's not overtly offensive. Like, I'm more annoyed when I see a great film that has a great premise, great cast, great director, and then shits the bed.
Yeah.
Rather than a film that is just average. This is just bad. No, it's not even average. It's poor. It's just poor, but it's still competently made. There's nothing that jumps out as bad about it other than the script. It's the script that sinks this. The script and the direction, sadly. Moving on to our next film, and as Admiral Akbar once so succinctly put it, it's a trap. And this time it's M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, starring Josh Hartnett. Now, guessing the twist in an M. Night Shyamalan film has been de rigueur since The Sixth Sense. But the trailer for Trap gives away the biggest twist on purpose, so let's see if that's a good idea or not. Josh Hartnett plays a Philadelphia firefighter called Cooper Adams, who takes his teen daughter to a concert by our favourite pop star, Lady Raven, played by Shyamalan's daughter, Saleka, who is a pop singer. As we see from the trailer, Cooper notices lots of security, and a very helpful merch guy called Jamie gives him all the exposition he needs, saying, well, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but... And the whole concert is basically a trap for a serial killer called the Butcher. We then see Hartnett is a serial killer because he's looking at someone chained up in the basement on his phone. And then the film just becomes this increasingly crazy ride with Cooper trying to escape the concert without giving himself away. Thankfully, there is more to the film than the trailer suggests, and I think front-loading the twist in the trailer was a smart move because it means we are analysing every frame from the start of the film, and it's not how is he the killer, why is he the killer, it's how is he going to get out of the trap? Is he going to get out of the trap? How is he going to react when he finds out it's a trap, and what will he do to stay free? And look, this film is absolutely preposterous, but in all the right ways for me. Because every time you think, how is he going to get out of this situation? And he does it in some of the most outlandish way. You're looking at this film going, right, the only way he can get out of the situation is to do A. There is no B and C. He can only do A, but A is so stupid, and then he does A.
Yeah.
And at this point, you're just like, do you know what? If every twist is going to be this stupid, but in character, it doesn't break its own rules for stupidity, if that makes sense. It keeps to its own rules. And once you start going along with that and enjoying the ride, and honestly, that's how your enjoyment of the film will work. If you buy that, when that first kind of twist happens, and you're just like, okay, I'm in. I'm in. It's Hartnett's charisma is carrying me through, and it is really darkly funny. And it's supposed to be funny. And I think we're all in on the joke with this film. I think with some of Shyamalan's films, you watch them and you're like, no, this isn't working. And no, it's not working. Whereas this, I feel like we're laughing at the things. I know it's funny because in the really tense scenes, people were like laughing out loud. I was like, no, but we are supposed to laugh here. It is funny. Look, and obviously, Hartnett is really funny in this role. He's so superb at juggling the dual roles of loving father who will do anything to give his daughter this amazing once-in-a-lifetime night at a favourite pop concert, to the cold, calculating serial killer who will do anything to escape. And he shifts between them so well in the film. And you're almost on side with him to a point because of how great the performance is. Is he really that bad because he's such a good dad? And, I had a ton of fun with this film. And hey, if you can make a full-length concert movie for your daughter's pop star fledgling career, why not? I would say, having been to a lot of gigs in my life, this is the most unrealistic pop gig I think I've ever seen on screen. That isn't something I'm going to pick up in a film like this because it's part of the heightened world that Shyamalan's creating. And I had a ton of fun with this. And I think if you can get over the preposterous plot twists and just go, do you know what? I'm going to enjoy the ride. I think we need more darkly comedic mid-budget thrillers like this. And it's done okay at the box office. It took around 60 million at time of recording. So it's a trap. Go and see it. You know what the trap is.
I do really want to see this because I've got a bit of a soft spot for Shyamalan as a filmmaker. Even some of his worst films like The Happening, I still kind of get what he's trying to do with it. And actually, funnily enough, earlier in the month, I rewatched Signs and I watched The Village for the first time. And there's a few blind spots, but all the ones I have seen, I'm like, I just have an appreciation for what he's trying to do. And even if something doesn't fully work, again, kind of what you said earlier, there are occasional films of his where the premise might not necessarily work and the execution kind of falls flat with it. But then there are other times where he tries something. It might not work fully, but for the most part, you're still on board with it. I think The Village is a good example of that. For the most part, I was really on board with it. And then when it started to deviate, that's when it kind of lost me. But I still saw what he was trying to do. Plus, I like Josh Hartnett as well.
I think at the time, I remember seeing The Village when it came out. See, I'd had the twist spoilt for me before I saw it. So the first time I was watching it, I was enjoying it more because I was picking up on how he was leaving his little red herrings and leaving all the clues in to the reveal. So I enjoyed it more knowing the twist going into it. I mean, I thought Knock at the Cabin was really good, although they did change the ending from the book, which annoyed me. But it had Dave Bautista wearing glasses, and when Dave Bautista wears glasses, he's in proper serious Dave acting mode.
I really like Knock at the Cabin as well. I think Knock at the Cabin got unceremoniously swept under the rug last year. People sort of hyped it up when it came out, and then just no one talked about it. Whereas I really liked it. I thought I thought it did what it needed to very well.
Yeah.
And then did a bit more near the end. Plus, I just like a lot of the actors in it, like Rupert Grint, Jonathan Groff, and all that.
I suppose one of the things it had going for it as well, I think it's the first time I can remember seeing a gay couple be the leads in that type of horror film. And like you say, Jonathan Groff is a brilliant actor. I forget who the other actor was in it now, but they did. I honestly wish they, without spoiling it, I wish they'd gone with the book ending because it's a lot darker.
Okay. Noted.
Yeah, if you've watched the film, definitely read the book because it's Paul Tremblay, the author, and all his books are really good. He's an amazing author. I'm waiting for the next adaptation of his next material. Right, well, moving on. Well, if you can feel it, chase it. And if you can feel it, it's probably a tornado, which you should probably absolutely not chase unless you are Tyler Owens or Kate Carter. Yep, it's Twisters. Now, this is one of this year's legacy sequels to 1996's original Twister, which starred Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. And, of course, the most iconic thing from that film, the flying cow. The sequel comes from director Lee Isaac Chung, and on paper, a director whose last film was an intimate family drama about South Korean immigrants in 1980s America. That won Oscars. This would not seem the obvious choice for his next move, a massive SFX-laden summer disaster blockbuster, but it works, and boy does it. This film has Glenn Powell's megawatt charisma on full show. Daisy Edgar-Jones has a well-acted internal struggle because she's going to have a tragic backstory. You just know she is. But in a film where spectacle would usually be enough, Chung does a great job of filling out the whole cast with people who are not all good or not all bad, and instead of the usual stereotypes, you get a lot more shades of grey than you would normally get in this type of films, especially when it comes to the film's quote-unquote off villains. In fact, the only stereotype in this film is an angry hotel customer who gets sucked off. No, that sounds bad. Blown. No. Launched into the sky by a tornado, and he is played briefly by Bill Paxton's son, James. So there's your one little link to the original film, which most people missed. While not from Oklahoma, Chung, the director, is actually from Arkansas. And so he knows how to shoot the vast landscapes, but he also knows how to bring the humanity of something like Minari to these films. How many big budget blockbuster films do we see where there's a disaster and there's never any follow-up with the victims or the wreckage and how it impacts their lives? We see that here. Not obviously loads of it because it's still a summer blockbuster film, but you get enough of it to see the impact of the storms on the local community, and Chung conveys that really well. The cast are all great, the pacing, the editing is spot on, and you actually care about the characters by the end of the film. The film's runtime flies by. And honestly, this is what the standard should be for a summer blockbuster legacy sequel. And next year, we'll probably be watching Glenn Powell in Black Draft, because apparently that's the next one he's supposed to be redoing. Glenn Powell is essentially 80s and 90s legacy sequel guy now. And you know what? I'm for it, because he's earned it. He's doing well, man.
I think he's also starring in a remake of is it The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright?
Is it The Running? Is he still on for that? Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. I watched it again at the weekend with my parents, and again, they absolutely loved it. I think it's because they partly remembered the original. So it's like, oh yeah, we've seen this. So it's like, yeah, you have, but I think it's better acted. I think it's better directed. I think it's better than the original, actually, yeah. Twisters is fine. It's like a great 90s action film.
Yeah.
But I don't hold it up as this kind of unimpeachable classic. It was a fun popcorn film, and I feel this is kind of will be remembered the same way. It's a fun popcorn film, but I think in modern way, I think Chung's just a better director than Jan de Bont did Twisters, I think. Like I said earlier, on paper, getting the guy who did Minari and just seems weird, but actually no, he knows the places, he knows the people, and it comes across really well in the film. And it's whatever producer put that together, you earned your money on this one, because it's obviously earning all the money.
I do really want to watch Twisters. I haven't seen the original, but I think
doesn't matter.
I'm planning to see it next week, because my local cinema has got one singular showing of it next Monday, and I thought it.
The original.
No, this one, Twisters, because I thought it had already gone from cinemas, but then I just saw one lonely little screening next week, so I might try and. I feel like it's a film you best experience in the cinema, so if I can squeeze that in next week,
definitely,
I will make sure to try and see Twisters next week. I'll be the last person on earth to see it, but I will still have seen it.
The last film I'm going to talk about before we dive into your little special section here, The Young Woman and the Sea. Yep, as the Olympics have been on recently, I thought, what better time to watch Daisy Ridley's new film that was in the cinemas for about 2 days and then dropped on Disney Plus about the same time afterwards. And that is The Young Woman in the Sea, which, of course, I keep wanting to call The Old Man in the Sea, which I'd never seen that or read the book, but they just kept making me think of that series of Arrested Development when Maybe gets promoted to a Hollywood studio and she's going to make a new version of The Old Man in the Sea. That's a random intro. But this is a light and enjoyable biopic about Trudy Ederle, who grew up in New York at the start of the 1900s at a time when most women were not even allowed to swim, let alone compete professionally. After an early childhood illness, Trudy begins to break record after record until swimming the English Channel is her ultimate objective. This is what you would call a perfect Sunday afternoon film. It's an easy watch. Your parents will love it. My mum was literally shouting, "Kick your feet" at the screen, just like Trudy's teacher Charlotte was, played by Sean Clifford from Fleabag. Ridley is great in this, and she really continues to take interesting roles post-Star Wars. I know we don't mention Chaos Walking, because, let's face it, no one should mention that. The Marsh King's Daughter with Ben Mendelsohn was really good, as was her performance in the recent indie film Sometimes I Think About Dying. There's great support from her parents in the film. Jeanette Hayne plays her mum, Gertrude, who really encourages her, and Kim Badinia plays her father, Henry, who vehemently opposes her passion for swimming. Special shout out to Tilda Cobham Harvey, who plays her sister, Margaret, who is also a talented swimmer when they're younger, and I love how their relationship is portrayed on screen. Later on, you've got Christopher Eccleston coming in for a cameo as a grumpy swimming coach, Coach Wolf, who's a bit of a dick, and you've got Stephen Graham in it, playing the more pragmatic Chungs swimmer, Bill Burgess. Like Trap, I love a good mid-budget film. You don't seem to get as many these days. As of August, though, this has sadly only taken $500,000 in the States, a paltry 81 grand in the UK, but surprisingly, over $1 million from China. So I guess the Chinese appreciate their swimming films a bit more, or they're just really big Daisy Ridley fans. This is a perfect, easy-watch film. It's family-friendly, and make sure you stick around for the end credits to get some footage of the real-life Trudy Ederle and some of the more facts about her amazing life. There's a scene, I mean, we all know this film. We all know it'd be a fucking shocker if she failed at the end of the film, right? It's that easy kind of, it's not really a spoiler to say she's probably going to succeed in this. But at the end, where you have this big kind of celebration, my old man was watching, he's like, there is no way that many people turned out. And then the next thing in the credits is the real life celebration. And it was just as big. And everyone, you're amazed at how big the celebration is. And just what a life she led after that. It's just a nice film to watch in the middle of the afternoon, or something that, the whole family's going to watch. It's not taxing, it's not trying. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this one I did actually watch. Unlike everything else you mentioned, I did actually watch this one. I really liked it. I went in. I'd heard a few people that had gone to see it and thought it was pretty decent. I think someone I know called it. What did they call it? Top Gun Maverick in the Sea. And I kind of get that, but I pretty much just agree with everything you said. It's a nice, easy watch. You don't really have to think about it. It's got some really good performances from pretty much everybody. I'm a sucker for anything that Stephen Graham shows up in. I think he's brilliant in everything. And
we'll have to talk about Boiling Point sometime then.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Boiling Point. I need to watch the series as well. The film gave me enough anxiety. The film gave me enough anxiety as it is, so I'm kind of hesitant to start the series. But
the series pulls a kind of similar idea to The Bear in where it can't be that tense all the time.
Right. Okay, that's good to know.
The maker of Boiling Point, because he used to be a chef, Philip Barantini, the filmmaker, he said, why couldn't there be a crossover with The Bear? Why couldn't one of their characters go over to Chicago, or why one of their... And he's totally for it. So that is the dream one day, to get a Bear Boiling Point crossover. Because we've talked about this on the pod before. Yeah. We're not sure what come first, The Bear or the Boiling Point, because Boiling Point was being made as the film. Yeah. And then, because it was super low budget, I remember reading they only had enough budget to do the film, because it was one take, 90 minutes, and they only had enough budget to do the film 4 times. And then they did it twice, and COVID shut them down. And luckily, the second take was the one. Then, a few months after that, The Bear comes out, which is basically very similar in terms of pace, editing, tension in that show. And then because of the success of The Bear, the BBC then approached them about turning Boiling Point into a show. So it's kind of chasing its own tail and thing. I have got the special edition of it, and I haven't dived into all the extras in it yet.
I do. I keep looking at getting that special. Is it the second sight Blu-ray? I presume you're.
Second sight one,
I
yeah.
really want to get that, but I keep looking at the price tag on it, and I'm like, maybe if it goes down just a little bit, then I will get it. But
they rarely do. They really do. I've got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one they did, and that is my biggest retweet I ever got in my life. I took a picture of it when it arrived, and I got a retweet from Guillermo del Toro.
Wow.
And didn't realise she retweeted me, and I was like, why has this tweet blown up? All it literally is literally the most innocent tweet ever. It just said, another amazing box set of a classic film from Second Sight. Look at this set, it's beautiful. That was it. And then it got retweeted by Del Toro.
Wow.
And so I was looking at the phone, I was like, why have I got 1,000 notifications? And I actually missed originally his retweet because there were so many notifications. It was only like later that night when I looked at the phone, I was like, holy shit, we've been retweeted by Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's up there with our like from Ben Stiller and James Gunn. So,
oh, wow.
there are big ones here on the pod so far. On We Need
I will admit, sometimes it's the most unlikely tweets that end up getting ridiculous amount. Like, I tweeted something about, I think, what was it? It was like, because of X-Men 97 and Deadpool and Wolverine, this is kind of the year of the mutant. And then like 70,000 people have viewed it. It's got like several hundred like retweets and likes. And I'm like, out of all the tweets, that's the one that goes, I don't get it, but fine. Yeah, you do your
when
thing.
you think of something, when we think of something that's really funny and clever and you post it and then it gets no reaction at all. Well, this brings us to your special section, Aaron. Now, you have been covering Fright Fest recently. And how many films have you watched at Fright Fest recently?
As I've been covering it virtually, I've managed to get through 12 films throughout the entirety of August. In the in-person festival, it's only really been happening throughout the second to last weekend of the month, but because of the virtual press coverage, I've been able to start covering and watching screeners a lot earlier. So I've been able to see, at the moment, 12 films in total by the time we're recording this. Not all of them have been that great, but there have been a few really good standouts that I think a lot of people.
And who are you covering this for at the moment?
Mostly for my YouTube channel, but there will be a few select reviews that I've already written up and will be going up on the Cinematique website. So if you follow me on Twitter, I'll be reposting those reviews when they go live. I think I'll also post them on my Instagram as well. But I'll be doing one big roundup video talking about all 12 films that I saw on YouTube. So it'll probably be a long video, but there'll be timestamps for each film, and I'll be covering them in the order that I saw them.
Awesome. And at the minute, we're obviously not going to make you go through all 12 here today because it's been a long day. And words have lost all meaning for me. What I was going to say is, give me your top three. So what do you have at number 3?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, to be honest, the top 3 pretty much have stayed there since I watched them, and nothing's really overtaken them. So these are probably going to be my final top 3 from the festival by the end of it. So at number 3, we've got this is a weird one because it's a film that everyone else got last year, but the UK still hasn't got, and that's The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I don't know why the UK still hasn't got it, and before we get to it, it still doesn't have a UK release date on the horizon. It's just in a weird limbo. So as soon as I saw that it was on the Fright Fest lineup this year, I immediately jumped at the chance to watch it because I was excited for it last year. Didn't get a UK release for some bizarre reason. So I made it the first thing that I watched, and it is really good. In terms of it being a horror film, it delivers scares pretty well and pretty regularly. I think the best aspect of this film is that it nails the gothic horror tone so well. Plus the cast are all fantastic in it. You've got David Dastmalchian doing his thing. He's fantastic in this film. You've got Corey Hawkins, who leads the film, and I'd not really seen him in anything before. But he does a really good job in carrying the film. And for those of you that don't know, this is based off of, I think, like the first couple of chapters of Dracula, where they're kind of they're carrying over Dracula in transit on a boat called the Demeter, and unfortunately This isn't really spoilers because it's in the book and it's the plot of the film. The crew all tragically die before the ship even gets to England, and it's basically accounting that period of time where Dracula's picking them off one by one. So it's Alien on a boat, pretty much. But it is very good. I had a lot of not fun. I enjoyed this film. I thought it was very good.
So, what do you have at number 2?
At number 2, I'm not joking. This is the actual title of this film. It's a horror comedy called Scared Shitless. That is the actual name of the movie. And if you thought if you thought the title was funny, the premise is even better.
Does the premise involve someone who has IBS?
No, but I might copyright that in a minute. I might patent that. So the premise of this film is that a plumber and his germophobic son are forced to get their hands dirty to save the residents of an apartment building when a genetically engineered bloodthirsty creature has escaped into the plumbing system. That's kind of all you need to know going into this film.
Is this a British film or an American
film? It's a Canadian film because the lead is Stephen Ogg, who some people might remember in stuff like, I think he's in The Walking Dead, and he's
the name rings a bell.
He famously also played Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5 in a short film that went viral because he pretty much is the human embodiment of that nutcase from that game. And he does a really good job here. And to be honest, this is one of those films, I always find horror comedies they always have a bit of a balancing act to take. Like, do they lean more into horror? Do they lean more to comedy? And some horror comedies have that struggle. This film knows exactly what it is, and it just knows what it is and sticks to it. When it wants to be funny and delve into the toilet humor, it does it really well without going too far of it being gross. But then when it wants to go in,
literal toilet humor,
sometimes literal toilet humor, and then other times it's
I mean, you have to with that title, right?
Yeah, there are other times where it's funny jokes, like play on words, and then there's other times where it's a literal fart in an elevator kind of level. But then when it wants to go into horror, it's also really well done. You can tell that this is fairly low budget, but it does the creature effects pretty well, actually. Like, whenever the creature did appear, I was genuinely quite impressed, and I was like, you know what, I can actually commend them for what they've been able to pull off here, and I think it's a really enjoyable film. If you just go into it knowing what you're getting, you will have a blast with this. And I think from the reactions it's got so far from Fantasia Fest, I think everyone else that's seen this film so far has kind of on the same page. Unfortunately, this also doesn't have a UK release date on the horizon, but as soon as it becomes available in the UK, do go and watch it because it is really fun.
Cool, man. Yeah, that sounds good. What do you have at number 1?
So my number 1 pick is a film that I think got quite a lot of buzz from one of the festivals. I want to say South by Southwest. It's a thriller called Strange Darling.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
Yeah, so funny.
The trailer has just dropped online, and I haven't watched it purposely.
Yeah, so funnily enough, this one actually does have a release date on the horizon. The 20th of September is when it gets released in the UK. This is one of those films where the less you know about it, the better. All I'm going to...
That's what I've heard. That's why I've avoided the trailer as well. I've just heard it's absolutely crazy and mental, and the lead actress is Willa Fitzgerald, who was in... what was the Mike Flanagan show?
Oh.
Fall of the House of Usher. She was in that. And she was in the first series of Jack Reacher as well.
Yeah, she's brilliant in this film. I mean, in terms of plot, I'm just going to read the very short paragraph that's on Letterboxd. Nothing is what it seems when a twisted one-night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. That's all you need to know, because the film is very unconventional in the way it presents itself. The whole thing is shot on grainy, gritty 35mm film. You feel that there's a lot of passion behind the way it's edited and the way it's shot. It's just really well made. That's kind of all I'm going to say about it. And that also, it plays with your expectations. As soon as you think you know where it's going, it will pull the rug out from you multiple times in a way that doesn't feel like it's doing it just for the sake of, oh, here's a twist. it does it in a way that kind of serves the story, and it serves the non-linear manner in which it chooses to present the narrative, which again took me by surprise, because I wasn't expecting it to be presented in that way. And when the film presented it that way, I was like, oh god, here we go, it's like a Pulp Fiction ripoff. And then it presents it in the way it does, and I'm like, that was really well done. I can't be mad at it.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's on the list. I'm hoping we might get it as like a secret screening or something down here, because I don't think it's going to get a major release, is it?
No, I think it's going to get the best you're probably going to get is like you might have to like go out of your way to find a smaller cinema that's showing it. And if it does get like one of those secret screenings, I really hope it does, because it will reach a wider audience that way.
It feels like the kind of film that'd be perfect for it, though, doesn't it? As well.
Yeah,
go in not knowing anything about it, and then
it also doesn't hold back as well. It's one of those films where it just, when it hits one level, it will then go to another level, and then just keeps getting more intense as the film goes on. And again, mixed with the non-linear narrative, it shouldn't work like on paper, but in the film, it's just like, yes, keep doing more of this. It's fantastic.
Right, well, we've been talking horror films, so let's get on to the main event of this episode, and that is our spoiler special on Alien Romulus.
This is your spoiler alert.
So, from Evil Dead and Don't Breathe director Fede Alvarez comes the 9th film in the Alien franchise, if we include the 2 Alien vs. Predator films, which I don't think we really need to. So, Alien Romulus was originally intended to be a streaming-only release with a modest budget of around $80 million. Yet, thankfully, studios changed their minds, and it's become quite a decent blockbuster so far, making $108 million within its opening weekend worldwide. The film stars Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renew, Isabella Merced, Spike Fern, and Eileen Wu. Set 20 years after the events of Alien, we meet Kaylee Spaney's Rain Carradine, an orphan who works with her reprogrammed synth brother Andy on the mining colony of Jackson Star. She dreams of saving up and one day soon leaving for the colony of fucking hell, I can't pronounce that. Yaga? Can anyone remember what it was called?
I think one of those is correct.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jose.
Or something.
And as we all well know, Wayland Yutani are dicks, and she's told her contract has been extended by 6 years. Kind of like us back in the old days, Jose, when our contracts got extended on ships. Exactly the same thing. Did you ever get extended?
I got extended.
I got extended 3 times. Once I did 9 months, man.
Oh, wow.
Not 6 years, but still. Quick for Aaron, because you probably don't know what we're talking about. Me and Jose used to work together as Jose was a photographer. I was a videographer for Princess Cruise Lines back in the day.
Yes.
So, very good job traveling the world, getting paid money to go and see places and take pictures of people and places. So, yeah, pretty good job.
Not the worst.
Not the worst. Not a bad day not a bad way to spend 7 years. But better than 6 years, which Rain got stuck doing on Jackson's Star. Upon hearing that she's been extended for 6 years, she agrees to join her ex-boyfriend Tyler and his friends in a mission to retrieve some cryostasis chambers, which will get them to the colony. Aaron, as you're our guest today, what was your general first impressions of the film?
I personally really, really liked it. I am a bit of a sucker for the Alien franchise, because I like pretty much all of them bar like 1 or 2. So I just wanted this to be like return to form, just solid, good film, and it ended up being that, and I think it really nailed what it was trying to go for. I don't think it needed to be anything more than that, and it just did what it needed to perfectly.
Jose, overall thoughts?
I agree. I was very pleased. I purposely avoided trailers because in the past they gave away too much in certain movies, and I set the bar really low on purpose. I was like, it's just give me something and I'll be happy. And it went way above and beyond what I could have expected. And to the point where there were some things I was like, I didn't agree upon completely. But overall, I was just so happy with the film.
I think I got myself overhyped for this. Like everyone, I'm a big fan of the first and second. The
third one's not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. It's Fincher, man. I've still got time for 3. And, everyone forgets that it's Jean-Pierre Jeunet did 4. And the thing is, 3 and 4 were both their first big films in Hollywood. And, they were for Fox, who have got such a reputation for fucking people over on their films. So I'm not surprised at all, Fincher and Jeunet, this is the guy who did Amelie afterwards, man, doing an Alien film. Alien and Predator, I couldn't give 2 shits about. I thought they were both dumpster fires that I really had no redeeming qualities for me at all. but then I enjoyed that, and it's weird. This is kind of, if you look on film Twitter at a minute, there's this big reappraisal of Prometheus, and everyone's absolutely loving Prometheus again now, and even Alien Covenant. And I didn't have a problem with either of those when I saw. I generally enjoyed. I mean, it's like any Alien film. There's obviously problems with it, and I do like the sheer balls Ridley Scott had, is right, because he made Prometheus, wanted to do Prometheus 2, and the studio was like, no, well, it didn't do that well, Ridley, so no. Okay, how about a film called Alien Covenant, which is just going to carry on the story of the main character from Prometheus? I did love the balls. You just basically slapped Alien on it, and then it got made. And it's a shame we never got the third part of the trilogy, because I'd love to have seen where that story was going, where they went off to the
Engineers.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, to the engineers. Well, I would love to have seen what that would have been. So it's, there were big swings in idea. So I was expecting this bigger, because I'm a big fan of Fede Alvarez's earlier stuff. Don't Breathe and his Evil Dead remake. Again, his Evil Dead remake had no right going as hard as it did. Like, everyone was just like, "Oh, you don't remake Evil Dead." And it was fucking terrifying. I remember seeing that in the cinema with one of my friends, and we grew up watching those films, and we're like, "Oh well, it's not going to be the same in the cinema, a new one." And good God, it was brutal. I still prefer Alvarez's one to Evil Dead Rise from last year. I still think that's the better film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With this, there would have been such hyperbole on Twitter about it. Everyone was like, "Oh, the third act is absolutely amazing." I got myself so overhyped that I was mildly disappointed by it.
Mm-hmm.
Only mildly. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad film in any way. I think it's a superbly crafted. It's got amazing sound design, the cinematography, the scares. It's all done top, and it is the best Alien film since the original two for me. But I just think I got myself a bit overhyped with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think it comes down to the first hour. I love. I thought it was superb. The world building, finding out more about the characters, and I loved to have seen a bit more of them on the planet and the mining colony. That really hit home. I loved that expansion of the world and seeing, Weyland-Yutani are still dicks everywhere. Well, this is obviously before Aliens, but
Yeah.
getting into that, you're just like, I wanted to see more of that. I like seeing more of that. But then for me, once they get on the ship, it just starts hitting every alien cliche in the book. And it kind of feels like this thing where, because I know it's 20th Century Studios now, but it still felt like that Fox thing kind of lingering over it, where, well, it feels like, they have to hit all these benchmarks for it to be an Alien film,
Here's where I'd like to come in. And I think if you think about it, it is based off of a horror movie. The original Alien is a horror movie. Yeah. And we are such fans of, or honestly, you guys are such fans of horror films. It's kind of similar. It's just that we have a different expectation for Alien because of how good it was. If you look at the 90s and the 80s, the sequels that they did, ultimately they come down to villain comes back, kills a bunch of new people, and then gets defeated. And I know that's overly simplifying it, but that happens here. And so if anything, I understood that they had to kind of put these people in a situation where we know they're going to pass away. And I was really exactly looking forward to one particular guy, Bjorn. I was really looking forward to him dying. But it was one of those things that it's the way they implement the idea, like, how do we get rid of these characters? And I thought that the movie did a really good job about that.
Oh yeah, there's some amazing set pieces in it. I think in my head I'd overhyped myself for it, and I just the level of hype on it was, everyone was absolutely losing their shit last week when it came out, or the week before online about it, and I was really, this is going to be amazing, and it is really good. It's a really, I think I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd still, but I was hoping it was going to push up that extra level for me. What were some of your pros and cons, Aaron? What was bits that really jumped out of you?
You see, I when it came to like hyping it up, I kind of had I wasn't like overhyping it or underhyping it. I just kind of had this level of expectation where I was like, as long as it just goes back to basics and just delivers good in that department, then I'll be happy. And this is coming from someone who loved Prometheus right from the word go, and Covenant as well. But I think for what it was, I think when it, similar to what Jose was saying, when it knows what it is and sticks to being, that typical Alien film, I think it really revels in that. And again, when it amps up the horror and the tension of things, which I felt was kind of lacking in Covenant, even though it delivered on like the gore and bringing back xenomorphs and characters from Prometheus and having it look and sound really great. I felt like there was not much tension there, whereas here, because you actually do kind of care about the characters from the beginning, kind of what you were saying, Neil, with the whole setup at the start, it there is that tension there from the word go. Like, they're going to die, but because you actually kind of give a crap about them for once, you kind of,
most of them.
Most of them.
which I can't really say the same about Alien 3 or Resurrection, because you kind of, they're just kind of there to be killed, whereas here it's like, okay, I care about that one. That one I kind of find annoying, but there are there are aspects to each of them where it's like, I don't want you to die. You're gonna die, but I don't want you to. And I feel like it really revels in that. And again, obviously, the film looks gorgeous. The score is great. The sound design is impeccable. And I think, and again, we'll probably discuss this later on when it comes to like specific plot points, but I think some of the main cons I had is that it could have gone a bit further in a few areas, and there are certain things that I feel like again, I'm going to be vague at the moment, but there are certain things that a lot of other people have kind of nitpicked and had a go at online about this film. I don't have as much of a problem with those things as other people do, but I can completely understand why. Yeah, it's one of those things.
I think I'm going to be one of those people.
It's one of those things where, like, as I was watching it, I was like, I know what they're doing, and I can respect it for the sake of the story, and it kind of works. But that being said, the more I think about it and the more seeing other people's reactions, I'm like, okay, I still like what they did, but yeah, you've got a point. But again, we'll probably get into more detail into those a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, I think jumping in, like, my kind of first question is, so they can just apparently take a small craft out of orbit with no questions, right?
Yes, I know that was like, I'm surprised that they didn't add an element of other teams trying to go after it. I think that would have been a nice advantage too.
Like, with the ship's cargo being so valuable to Weyland-Yutani, right? And yeah, I know the ship's offline when it's floating past, but no one else on the planet and the colony has noticed this giant ship floating past them. Oh, there could be stuff to get on there. They're the only people who thought about it on the colony.
I think that would have been a missed opportunity for allowing other characters that are maybe not delved in as deeply to be more expendable and be like, oh yeah, that's where the danger is they're going to be ripped apart really quickly, and we have to be able to sneak away while that happens.
Although that could have been a bit similar to Covenant, where, you had some characters introduced. Like, I mean, who was it? James Franco literally doesn't get a line before he's incinerated in Alien Covenant.
Oh, yeah.
So it would have been a bit, maybe tracking similar ground. Like, I get what you mean, Jose. It would be a good idea to have a different crew go up first, and then they get in trouble, and then, there could have been... Yeah, I kind of get it, but I suppose...
That's alternative ideas.
Yeah, but I suppose they need to get... You need this much time on setup, and then this much time to do what we want from an Alien film.
Oh, sorry. I want to bring back just one vague idea in terms of like why I think this was a good movie. It felt very lived in, and I feel like with Prometheus and Covenant, it just seemed very polished in times, and they went back to the lived in aesthetic that I think the original 3 even.
It's that kind of retro futuristic grimy, that's what people used to complain about the new Star Wars prequels, wasn't it? And then they don't look gritty enough. There's no grain in it. It doesn't feel, like you say, it doesn't feel lived in. And I think Alvarez, well, it was noted in all the making of the films, wasn't it, that he literally went and got as many people working from Aliens as he could to help out on this one to create the same look and give it that 80s aesthetic. And
I was so excited when I saw those computers turn on. I was like, oh my God, they got the look back. I was so excited when that, like, my friend laughed at me.
Production, sound design, it was all absolutely out of this world, to be cheesy. Wouldn't, like I said, getting back to my point about the ship's cargo being so valuable, like, I don't know why colony security might, well, one, not notice a ship leaving out, and two, that could be very important to our bosses. That might help us out.
Yes.
But I really did appreciate that the aliens, I thought they looked amazing in it. You could really appreciate the animatronics working. I mean, we've all seen like the behind the scenes videos of the animatronic face huggers, which is just pure nightmare fuel, right? I
did not see the behind the scenes, so now I'm going to have to look at it.
Have a look around, Jose. There's just, it's like just people with remote controls. And there was some of the early screenings, people were like plants in the audience having like xenomorphs burst out of their chest in the screenings and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man. So they really nailed it. But like I said, I loved the build up at the start. I wanted more of the backstory about the mining planet, And I really, but I loved how quickly, in not a lot of time, Alvarez conveyed how their lives are basically forfeit on Jackson's Star. And, oh yeah, you're just stuck here. You're going to go down the mines and you're going to die from your thing before you ever make enough money to get off this planet. That was so dark and just nihilistic, and I loved it. I think we need to get on to the first kind of major thing that turned off a lot of people, and that is bringing back Ian Holm post his death. Now, when I first saw that, I was just like, no.
I didn't. First of all, I didn't realize he was dead. That makes a lot of sense now.
Jose, I got nothing. I got nothing there, mate.
I mean, I'll be honest. I felt like it wasn't necessary. I was like, oh, okay. And I thought it was literally going to be maybe one scene that he would be helpful. Because I was like, when he was face down, I'm like, oh, I wonder if we're going to know who this character is later. And then it just kept going through the movie. And that's where I was like, they used him too much. And the only thing is I have a friend who is a much bigger fan of it. Like, I'm a big fan of Alien. But another friend of mine, he absolutely adored this movie with no questions asked. He just took it in.
Oh, he had no issue with
but like basically he's like everything he ate up. And in in a not in a naive way, but he just said he just enjoyed the whole movie. He had no qualms with it whatsoever. And I'm like a little more, like I said, there's a few things where I'm like, it wasn't what I would have chosen, but I still enjoyed the movie. And I think that's where I'm at.
To give it a bit of context, Ian Holm is digitally recreated and voiced, and he plays a damaged synth called Rook. Now, I get the need for nostalgia, right? But we could have used Lance Henriksen. He's still alive. We could have had, and here's the thing: he's not playing the same. They didn't really explain for me enough that Holmes' character was a line. They just said he's a science officer Rook. I thought I don't know how, because obviously I just thought, he's the same character from Alien. Of course, he's not the same character from Alien because there's no other survivors bar Ripley from Alien, and he's called Ash in Alien. They could have had it be the Ash model of science officer, so that would explain it a little bit more. I mean, it's not a major point. It's just I was kind of like, why are they giving him a different name? It's that kind of thing where I don't feel comfortable using an actor who's passed away's voice and image in a film. And it's not really been done too much yet. I know the one time I didn't have a problem with it was when they did it with Harold Ramis in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole film just felt like a tribute to him. And it was handled really well. I mean, any fans who are big Ghostbusters fans watching that film, there was not a dry eye in the audience when we were watching that in the cinema. And it was, and they did well to just do a digital recreation of his face. It wasn't there on screen a lot. It wasn't there very long. And most importantly, they didn't have him speak. And you felt like the family wouldn't have agreed to it if they hadn't wanted to. And probably the same with this here. Like, I'm sure Holmes' family okayed it, because otherwise, if not, fuck you, 20th century, for doing this.
Yeah, they did okay.
They did okay. Yeah. Okay, so, but again, and I suppose I can see why family would like to see their family member back on screen again. But I just thought, you could have just used it. You could have had Lance Henriksen's character. You could have had a Bishop model there, and it would have been a nice twist because Bishop's the good android in Aliens. So you could have had him being the actual villain in this for Weyland-Yutani. Could have been a nice little bit more of a twist. Because immediately we know Rook Ash is going to be bad. You know where it's going to come. Yeah. You also, if you didn't want to go down the simp route, you could have had a de-aged Paul Reiser playing like the shit heel we know well from Aliens earlier in his career and still being a dick. He could have like, hey, well, once the ship was activated, he could have been like, Weyland-Yutani headquarters going, oh shit, the ship's active. Let me patch in. Hey guys, what's going on? Can you do this for me?
Although this was 20 years still prior before Aliens, so he would have been like younger than he was in the original film.
He could have been like, I don't know, intern shit heel.
You could have even had, because I don't really see many people bring this up, like, you could have had Lance Henriksen, but you could have even like tied everything together and had just Michael Fassbender come back, because you've already established that like there are multiple versions of the clone of synths that look like David Fassbender, Michael Fassbender. But you could get away with that because you got David. You've got, I can't remember what the one is called in Covenant. What is
the flute player?
Yeah, there's David, and then there's the other one. But again, you've already established that like there's multiple synths that look like Michael
Yeah,
Fassbender.
that would have
You
been
might
good.
you might as well just bring him back. He's still kicking.
And the CGI budget wouldn't have been nowhere near as bad on him
No,
because he looks the same.
yeah, he looks identical as he did like bloody hell back 10 years ago.
I do like. I mean, one of the highlights of the film for I think everyone is David Johnson's performance as Andy.
Yeah,
As the slightly damaged
Oh, he did a great
synth.
job.
He was superb, wasn't he?
it was
I
fantastic.
kind of got a bit of an AI vibe, the old Steven Spielberg one
Yeah.
from that.
It was an interesting way to introduce him too. It's like you don't really know until he has that issue with the kids,
Mm.
and she has to reboot. That's a really great
Yeah,
job.
well, and then that made me immediately think of RoboCop when he gets a new Prime Directive, and I was like, oh, there's a little RoboCop nod there. Love a RoboCop nod. The zero gravity swimming through acid scene is probably the film's one of the highlights for me in terms of action scenes.
I'd heard a lot of people hyping that up from like the press screening and like the advanced screenings and saying that like there's a scene with zero gravity and it's really good, and that's about all I heard. So I was like, okay, when that scene comes, I'm like, I want to know how good it is, and it didn't wow me as much as everyone else like was blown away by it, but like just the core concept of it, I was like, actually, that's pretty unique and pretty cool. And I don't think I can't recall seeing anything like that, not just in an alien film, but like just a sci-fi film of this scale. Full stop.
It was definitely original, and I was wondering like, how are they going to get out of this corner? Something's that I knew when they were starting to say the joke. They were going to be like, oh, the joke that's going to help me come up with an idea, and I was like, what's the joke going to be?
Yeah, I liked the little running joke about him doing bad dad jokes, and they weren't funny, and that was just brilliant. So I did really enjoy that. What I really liked was I loved the pot. Let's talk everyone's favorite character. Let's talk Bjorn.
Oh yeah, immediately I knew.
Apparently, people in the state. Jose, could you understand what he was saying?
Off and on, I'd say off and on, but only because I'm also used to watching television shows with captions, so it's a little bit of that too. But
and obviously doing a podcast with us all from the UK the last couple of years.
Yes. Where is he from? What was the accent from?
It's supposed to be like London, Cockney, wasn't it?
Yeah, like London, leaning a bit more to London, Essex, that sort of thing. They're in the bloody water.
Something in the water.
Oh.
He did get one of the best deaths though, because I loved that it was just an innocent little looking pod on the wall, and then it just
innocent looking, Neil.
By terms of what we see in this film, it didn't look like it was going to fuck your shit up that badly, did it?
That's true. I honestly thought he was going to kill it and then get attacked by something else, but he was.
No, he just pissed it off.
Yeah,
and he was the most dickish character, and he did deserve to die horribly, and he definitely did.
Although the only thing is, now I'm going to nitpick that situation. Why didn't he roll away from being under the acid spilling? He's just like, I'm staying under the acid that's falling on me. But otherwise, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, he could have easily got out of there, but I'm not.
But we didn't want him to.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, Bjorn, the least Swedish-sounding Londoner in space. And one other thing I think a few people had an issue with was the whole science angle with the alien's blood called Prometheus fire. That's where they were trying to tie it in. And the idea that the alien's blood could also be used to make humans better, capable of surviving colonization.
Well, I think what it was is they had distilled it to the elements that was that liquid goo from Romulus, and it really just allowed for the ability to change the DNA in a way. And that's where the whole message of human naivety.
I must have missed something, because I thought that it was just straight up the goo from like Prometheus and Covenant that they just. I've completely missed the whole bit about like them synthesizing it from blood, because I thought they'd just like, oh, by the way, Prometheus still is relevant.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I thought I wasn't 100% clear on that either, Jose. To be honest.
Oh, I thought they were taking it from the samples they had, like the aliens that they had found, and distilled it down.
Take into account I'm an idiot, so I probably like missed something. I probably missed something.
I mean, I feel like that is probably one of the weaker areas of the writing, is it's not very clear exactly what happened.
Well, that's what I kind of get onto about the pacing of the film. Like, I think the film's paced well in terms of how, the events, one event leads to the next, there's enough time to it doesn't feel rushed. But it does in the sense that you have great build-up, which you always do have. I mean, you're maybe an hour and a half into the first, at least an hour and maybe more than that, into the first Alien before anything really happens.
Yeah.
You know, I think that people forget a lot with a lot of 70s and 80s classic horror films. Nothing happens a lot for ages, you know, and then when the first thing happens, it hits you so much higher because you've been waiting for it. I forget who the film director was. I remember an interview with someone a little while ago, and it was like, "Oh yeah, we had to put like the scare in at the start of the film because modern audiences don't buy that." And I was like, "Bullshit."
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched like an Ari Aster film? Have you watched a Robert Eggers film? No.
Yeah.
That's utter bullshit.
I heard someone mention this after I saw it, and I kind of cottoned onto it while I was watching the film. But once the station starts getting closer to the asteroid belt and the countdown starts, I kept checking my watch, and the timings are pretty spot on in terms of.
Oh, wow.
I did wonder that.
That's awesome.
So you're kind of in real time then, as it comes to that once that countdown starts.
I really liked how they it sped up the countdown from like 36 hours to, oh shoot, the airlock pushed us in a direction, now it's going to be a lot less. I think that was a legitimate way to make it like not seem a little forced, which it's hard to do for some movies to like go from like, oh, we have some time to, oh no, now we are in a time crunch.
What I would say is, though, the issue I have with the pacing is not that side of it, which was done well, as you guys have just explained there. It's that once they get on the space station, they then have to start ticking off all the Alien classic moments. And there's a way to do that, and it's the same issue I had with like the Ghostbusters films, right? I do like the two new Ghostbusters films. That's just because I'm a massive Ghostbusters. You know, I like all the Ghostbusters films, to be fair. Even like the misjudged one, it wasn't not funny because they were women. It just wasn't that greatly written overall. Okay, those women were amazing. I love Saturday Night Live and Kristen Wiig, Leslie Jones, and everyone on it. Yep. So I never had that. I never had that reaction to the film, and in some ways, it got the balance right between comedy and horror better than perhaps the new Ghostbusters films.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Yeah.
One thing that it really lends itself to helping this movie be good, and it's something I saw on a YouTube channel, is that it returns to the idea that these are quote unquote regular people. They're like the space truckers, you know, from the original. They're put in a situation that they are just fighting for their lives, and they're being screwed over by the company. And that's what kind of carried through, even through the third film, to some degree. They're just regular people dealing with the consequences. Or, you know, in the original space truckers, the second one was military people that are following what they're being told to do, and then the third one is just prisoners. And so, like, I think after that is when they kind of start straying away from that. And it especially showed up in Prometheus and Covenant, where it stopped being regular people and it started being something else. Granted, it's a prequel with the other two movies from Ridley.
I mean, the thing with those two films are the Prometheus and Covenant is that Scott wants to explore the origins of the aliens, who created the aliens, who created us, and I was totally down for that, man. I saw Prometheus in the cinema in, of all places, Estonia, for some reason in Tallinn, and I think there was maybe 4 of us in there, so we pretty much had the whole place to ourselves, and it looked amazing.
Is it an alien movie? That's the real kicker. And
does it have to be? Really?
I think,
that's why he didn't call it Alien. He called it Prometheus.
I think what it is it's the same reason that I really enjoy the movie Prey, where it went back to the foundations of Predator, and it made sense. And that's where I kind of argue that it's not just a retread. It does have the same beats, but it puts a new spin on the concept that I think helps make the movie good.
Awesome point, mate. And do you know what? On the spot, I think I prefer Prey to this.
Really?
Prey does it. Yeah, I think.
Oh, wow.
Just on the spot, purely because it does the fan service bits, but it's its own thing at the same time. And it just does it really well. But then again, I really like Dan Trachtenberg as a filmmaker. Okay. I think some of the TV he's done has been really good. I think he did the pilot of The Boys.
Yeah,
and he also 10 Cloverfield Lane is such an underrated film. I think
he did Playtest for Black Mirror as well, which is like the video.
That was it. I knew he'd done some. Yeah. So I will watch whatever Dan Trachtenberg does, man. Near the end, when Rain's trying to save Andy, this is one problem: is we can see there's loads of aliens crawling towards them, loads of them. We keep getting that shot of the down the end of the rampway. But they stopped to have this really long emotional conversation. Yeah. And I was like, and then it kept cutting back to the same shot. I was like, Right, but you've thrown me off here with the pacing because he'd be fine. You can go back and get him later. He's an android. Like, just get safe yourself. Obviously, she's not going to leave him. I just felt at that point, the tension kind of dissipated a bit there for me. It's like, oh, we have to stop to have a conversation. No, you would be just dragging and screaming and running. You wouldn't be like, oh no, we need to do this. Oh no, I don't know. The whole human alien hybrid thing that happened with Isabella Merced's character.
I actually think it was done better than it was in Resurrection, because it like, as soon as she went into the pod and there was the red light blinking, I was like, oh, it's not going to be her. It's going to be the baby. Because it always is the baby. In Dawn of the Dead remake, the baby took up most of whatever happened. And when you see that big creature, you're like, holy shit, that's fucked
He's a Romanian basketball player, the guy who plays him.
Wait, a person really played it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's not CGI. That's a dude. Obviously, it's a dude with some CGI enhancements, I would imagine. That's some great prosthetics, but it's a dude. Yeah, it's like 6'9" or something crazy like that.
I honestly think they did a good job.
I think they did a good job with the look of it. I don't think it worked, and I don't think it worked going back to the same human alien hybrid idea that they didn't really get right in Resurrection either. It felt like they were kind of homaging. It's kind of like they almost wanted to homage all the Alien films in some way. And it's like, oh, here's our nod to that. Here's our nod to this. Here's our nod to Alien Resurrection. But also, Isabella Merced's character, I'm calling her that because I can't remember her name. And I didn't come up with this, sadly, but I did see online, someone said, pregnant isn't a character. Because that's literally...
For the record, her name is Kay. And
right.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they definitely shortchanged her.
She didn't have a lot to do, sadly.
In the scene where she got away, it was amazing when she dropped, and that was great camera work to it. You felt like you were dropping with her for a second. Like,
oh yeah,
boom. But yeah, it was unfortunate because she gets a little bit of time, and then next thing you know, she gets ripped away from the alien, and then that's kind of where you leave her for a while. And she's a MacGuffin essentially, because they have to go find her on the other side of the ship.
I mean, in some ways, I feel like trying to make a new Alien film is a bit of a poison chalice in some ways. It's almost like trying to make a new Bond or a Star Wars, right? You have to hit certain key iconography of the films. Otherwise, the fans you're trying to make it for are going to complain. You know, in Bond, it has to be the car, it has to be the suit, it has to be the martini, it has to be the gadgets. In Star Wars, you know, you have to have, well, I mean, they're changing it a bit now with Star Wars, but, you know, lightsabers, Jedi, Sith, you know, there's certain things you always have to do to hit. I just wish this film didn't go so heavily into the fan service. I really enjoyed what Alvarez was doing, and I don't think it needed all the tie-ins later on, because it just felt like boom, 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 boom. Here's something from Aliens, here's something from Alien, here's something from Resurrection, here's something from Prometheus. And that first hour, it was just him doing his own thing.
I was just going to say, I feel like, going off of what you've just said about the whole tick list thing, I feel like one of the new tick box things for the Alien franchise, and this kind of started with Aliens, is, yeah, we've got xenomorphs for the majority of the runtime, but now we're going to introduce something a little bit different in the end. Like with Aliens, it's the Queen. Yeah. With Alien 3, it's that weird dog xenomorph hybrid thing. Alien Resurrection, you've got I don't even know what they call it in that, like the weird human hybrid thing.
Yeah.
Obviously in Prometheus, you don't really get a xenomorph, you just get engineers and variations of it. In Covenant, you don't really get a xenomorph till the end, so it's kind of reversed. And here, you get xenomorphs, and then you get this weird engineer, human xenomorph thing that it's about 3 stories tall. I feel like that's now one of the new tick boxes for the franchise, which I don't mind, but the fact that it's happened this many times is starting to become noticeable, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, like, I get why they're doing it, because there's a lot of audiences, younger audiences, who have never seen an Alien film in the cinema. And they're having that reaction to it, and clearly by the internet it has massively hit really well with, like, the younger audience. But I suppose if you're older like myself and Jose, to a certain point, you've seen those films in the cinema. I mean, I wasn't born when the first Alien came out, thankfully, but I think I saw Prometheus, I saw Resurrection in the cinema. I don't think the film needed so much fan service in it. I would have rather just kept it, just a story, simple, plain. It's just Rain and trying to escape the horde of aliens and get to a cry booth. That's it. You don't need to tie in a Prometheus fire thing. You don't need the alien hybrid. But like you just said, Aaron, they always seem to have to introduce something new in each of them. I don't think they needed to.
I will say, as much as I didn't really think about it properly until you brought it up, but now that it's kind of there in my head, I can't stop thinking about it. But with that being said, as much as like some people will love and hate that weird hybrid thing at the end, it did give me one of the most effective jump scares I've experienced in a film for quite a long time. Like there were a few in like the early stages of the film where I was like, okay, that got me a little bit, but that one, near the end, I was like, good God.
I've got to admit, I'm fairly good on not getting jump scared. I think, again, when you've watched so many films and shows over the years, the only jump scare I can pull out of recent memory that absolutely was, full on brown trousers time was the car scene in that episode of The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, don't tell me, because I'm starting to watch that.
Jose, you're about 5 years too late, man. But it's a brilliant show.
I've not seen it either. You're all good.
Okay. Then I did very well on that. There's just a scene in the car, and you're not expecting it, and ooh. That's all I'll say. Also, one thing I didn't expect is it's gory. But it's not as gory as I thought it was going to be. It's only a 15 certificate. I believe some of the other films were 18s, and with Fede's background, especially from Evil Dead, I was expecting a lot more gore in this. Like that initial trailer made me think this is going to be wall to wall entrails. I was really getting that Evil Dead vibe.
I could have sworn for some reason, when like the press screenings and that happened, I could have sworn it was an 18, and then when I went to go and see it the day of, I was like, oh, it's a 15. I could have sworn it was going to be an 18 again because of like Fede's back catalogue, and also because of what some of the trailers and posters teased. I'm like, this is going to be, and again, what people had said from early screenings, I'm like, this is going to be gory and intense. And though it delivers on intenseness, I was like, could have been a little bit. I'm not usually one that goes for like, oh yeah, I need blood and everything, but I was expecting it to be gorier than it ended up being. There are still satisfying deaths, but I feel like it could have gone a bit further.
I won't be surprised if there's like a R-rated version or a director's cut later.
I don't know. I don't think Alvarez is that kind of director to bother with that. He's not Zack Snyder, is he? I mean,
I mean, even just adding a couple scenes here and there, I wouldn't be, like on a DVD. I think that's what really might happen.
Well, last couple of things I want to chat about in it are obviously the two actors. So Kaylee Spaney is having a hell of a year and a bit. I mean, she's excellent again here, playing a kind of proto-Ripley character. I mean, she does even walk around in a skivvies at the end, just like Weaver does, which I get because you're going in a cryo booth. But I was like, yeah, that's the scene they're rape. But I mean, what a run she's on at the minute. Priscilla, Civil War, and now Romulus. Oh, and of course, everyone forgets she was in Debs as well. I absolutely forgot that was her in Debs.
That's another show I need to watch.
Jose, there's a show called Debs. It's a sci-fi show from the guy who did Ex Machina, Alex Garland.
Civil War director.
Civil War director, yeah.
Oh,
probably why he knows her from there. And it's just this massive, crazy sci-fi show with Nick Offerman in it again. So it's President Ron Swanson.
8 episodes from 2020. Is that it? That's the
one, man.
Is it a miniseries or just a show that never got continued?
No, miniseries. It was planned for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's definitely worth your time, man, if you like Garland's work.
All right.
And as we mentioned earlier, David Johnson as Andy is superb. And if you're like many viewers, this is your first time seeing him, go and check out his equally great performance in a little British film called Rye Lane that is on Disney Plus right now as well.
Yeah, brilliant film.
Here's a little thing for you guys. What next for the franchise? Well, more Aliens, I guess, because this has done very well at the box office so far. But first up, next year, and I'm more excited about this than a continuation of this film, Noah Hawley, writer-creator of the brilliant Fargo and Legion, is doing his Alien TV show called Alien Earth.
I'm very skeptical about that.
I will raise your skepticism or challenge your skepticism, Jose, because here's what we know about the show so far. It's got a hell of a cast, and by the casting news, all we know is that it's going to be a prequel to the original film, taking place 30 years before Alien 1. And one would assume it's going to be set on Earth, because it's called Alien Earth.
Uh-huh.
The show's lead is Sydney Chandler, daughter of Kyle Chandler, and I can't remember anything I've seen her in yet. Yes, I know, rings a bell. I think she was in Sugar. She played the missing daughter in Sugar, if anyone's seen Sugar. The Colin Farrell show on Apple, which is a show I can't say anything more about because it's got a really big twist in it.
Oh,
But it's definitely worth watching. You will never guess the twist, Jose. Never in a million years. Yeah, so Sydney Chandler is the lead in it. Her character is called Wendy. You've also got Alex Lawfer playing a guy called CJ. Timothy Oliphant and his hair is back in it as a guy called Kirsch. You've got the great Babu Sisse in it and Essie Davis, brilliant Australian actress. And the always underrated Lily Newmark, who always seems to get killed in every show she's in. She was briefly in Sex Education. Then her character just disappeared off the screen. She was in that episode of The Free Body Problem. She was in the opening scene and didn't last more than 2 minutes in that. And then she was in Lockwood & Co., got put into a coma in the first episode of that, never saw her again. And she was in a show called Cursed that indeed was cursed and got cancelled. And she's a really good actress, and she always seems to be in stuff. So hopefully she's not going to die in this show, at least immediately. Now, yeah, like you said, Jose, I'm not keen on another prequel, but in Hawley's hands, I trust, because Fargo has been superb for years. This recent year's season 5, the John Hamm Juno Temple season, is probably one of its best seasons outright. And just before I mentioned the constraints of making an alien movie, here's a show where you can delve more into the beginnings of Weyland-Yutani being dickheads and what their plans really are. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Adrian Edmondson is in the show as well, and his screaming just casts evil Weyland-Yutani corporate suit. Just look at the guy. He's bald, he's English, he's going to be the villain.
here's the thing is though, how do they incorporate the alien?
I'm guessing it's going to be about, just from what we know, and I've gone through that, I'm guessing it's going to be about the start of Weyland-Yutani, them discovering it out somewhere, sending someone out to retrieve it, finding out there's probably more people searching for this bioweapon that's out there, and it's going to be, because they clearly know about it in the second film. We're not too sure in the first one how much they know about it. But then again, if we follow on from Prometheus and they could tie Prometheus into it. Imagine Fassbender turns up in one episode. There's so many ways they could go with it. I'm a big fan of Noah Hawley, and so I've got complete faith in that he's going to do justice to this. And like I say, he's not going to have to, because it's a TV show and it's a different medium, he's not going to have to hit all the same key points that we've just gone over in terms of iconography and delivering an alien. I could be quite happy not seeing an alien until the end of this, like the last episode of the series.
Wow.
Because all set up. It's the build.
I guess you're right. If it's done well, like
I want a retro futuristic sci-fi show about corporate dickheads exploiting poor people, and I'm there for it.
I'll be honest, Andor really caught me off guard. Like I wasn't expecting to be into that at all.
The least expected best Star Wars show I think you could ever expect, Andor. Like on paper, take one of the blandest characters from Rogue One, whose nickname literally was Cassian Blandor when people were talking about it when it came out. He had a great intro, and then he's a bit shady, great. Never in a million years did you think Andor, and we went through this before when we talked about Andor, that it was Star Wars for adults, and it just proved, look, you can do Star Wars shows for different groups of people. I mean, as we record this, literally the Acolyte has just been cancelled like days before we record this, and I'm not really jumping on the pylon bandwagon, but we did do a special on it recently, and we just thought it wasn't very well written. It had some good ideas, it had some really cool scenes, but overall the story just didn't work, and that sadly is why it's got, and I think that's why it got cancelled, not for any other nefarious reason, for dickheads on the internet going, oh, I don't like space lesbians. Fuck off. Like that's not why the show wasn't bad. The show wasn't great. It just had a story that needed to be fleshed out a bit more. It felt like a first draft, I think. And then it's funny because all the same dickheads are now moaning about Skeleton Crew. Oh, it looks shit. It looks like a kid's show. And they were moaning about, I think from the trailer from that came out the other day, they were moaning about space suburbs.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, really? That's the hill you're going to die on? I was like, it looks like the Goonies in space, and I'm there for it, man. I can't wait.
Perfect.
It literally, there's even a shot of a skeleton in the trailer, and the kids react. I was like, it's a Goonies in space. I'm there for it. And it's got Jude Law as like the grizzled old Jedi helping him get back. But this isn't a Star Wars podcast, but we have got a little bit off point. I think that rounds us to a hole here on Alien. Last thing I'll say, Aaron, how excited are you for an Alien TV show, knowing what you do about it now?
I'm kind of gonna repeat a few things that have already been said, but like I'm intrigued because I love Fargo, but I kind of dropped off of Legion a bit because I thought Legion was great in season 1, and then the more it went on, the more I was like, no, this has kind of lost me.
I did the same with Legion.
Yeah, similar to what you said though. Legion, like when it first was presented, like in trailers, I was like, okay, this is going to be another superhero comic book show, and then it does a complete 180 and is just completely not what you expect it to be. So in that sense, I do think, similar to what you were saying in terms of expectations, I think this has the potential to do something slightly different. And I think if it does do something slightly different, I'll be happy. I think the fact that it is a prequel does worry me a bit, because I think I saw somewhere that this is set years before Prometheus, and I'm like, well, how's that going to work?
Oh wow!
The last story I read somewhere was that it was set, I think, about 30 years before Alien. So,
right, okay.
Fingers crossed that's true. But yeah, I am a bit all prequeled out sometimes. It's almost like,
well, it creates a, depending on what the characters are used, it kind of creates a funnel that you have to follow to some degree.
I'll tell you one show that's a prequel that I'm actually really enjoying though, and I can't wait for the third series, is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. We all know what's going to happen to Captain Pike there, or do we?
Oh,
but
yeah.
Again, it's so well done, and that's an example of a sci-fi. I mean, we talked about that. That was that was our joint top show of the year on our last top 10 list, Aaron, and it was just we love. I mean, have you ever watched Star Trek: Strange New Worlds?
No, I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm really bad when it comes to Star Trek. It's a franchise I really want to get into, and I've only seen the J.J. Abrams films, but I need to get into
Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is literally the perfect way into it, because it's a prequel show, and what it does well, you don't have to have seen all the other shows to get it. But what it does well is it changes genre each episode. One episode was a space courtroom drama about trans rights. Another episode was a war film. Another episode was like a horror one. And one was a fantasy episode. And I loved, they even did a musical episode with K-pop rapping Klingons in it, and it still works. And yes, they did reference the Buffy musical in it, which I just loved as well. So, Jose, how excited are you for this show?
I'm like I said, I think I'm a little bit more optimistic with kind of talking it out. If Andor can be a surprise hit, I feel like this has potential. I just hope that they do it right and they don't really just try to shoehorn in, even though like I kind of let it happen with Romulus, the references. I hope they don't try to unnecessarily shoehorn in too many Easter eggs for the show.
I'm in Hawley. I trust, man. I'm expecting it to be good, man. Right. Well, that's all the time we have today on the We Need a Rose podcast. I'd like to thank my guest, Jose. Jose, where can people find you on the socials?
You can find me on Instagram at Jose Lopez Photos for my lifestyle and portrait work. And then on my website, you can find me at jlopezphotos.com.
And Jose, you know what I'm going to say?
Yes, I do.
Are these pictures you have taken of Jennifer Lopez or any weddings of hers?
They are not of Jennifer Lopez and no weddings of hers, but other weddings that I've done.
Very well. And our first time guest, Mr. Aaron Gillingham. Where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube and even TikTok at Aaron at the Movies, and every other social is Aaron as a. Don't ask me why I use that as a tag. It just is.
Brilliant.
By the way, we should mention it's Aaron.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
It's not the first time. Yep. Yep.
It's all right. You do not know how many times Jose has now heard the Jennifer Lopez joke, and when we used to work together, his nickname literally was J-Lo.
I had a name badge that said J-Lo that they made for me. I did not ask for it. They gave it to me.
No, but you still had to wear it.
And people stopped me when they saw the name, and they're like, "Oh, yeah." It was a conversation starter for sure.
Well, there you go. It's handy as a photographer, mate. That's what you need. Hey, come and get your photo, and I can explain my weird name badge. And remember, if you like what you hear, you can give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. You can find me at Needy Roads on Twitter. I forgot the we. David runs our Insta at We Needed Roads, but let's be honest, he's probably not going to post for a good couple of months. He's actually had a night's worth of sleep and not be covered in baby poo. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time, folks.
We Needed Roads.